Hey everybody, Tim Albrecht here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Ask a YFP CFP segment of the Your Financial Pharmacist Podcast, where we feature questions from you, the YFP community, to be answered by one of YFP Planning's fee-only certified financial planners. Before we jump into today's question, I want to give a shout out to YFP Planning's incredible team that makes this segment possible. YFP Planning offers fee-only comprehensive financial planning that is customized to the pharmacy professional. You can learn more about those one-on-one services and book a free discovery call by visiting yfpplanning.com. Okay, this week's question comes from one that we received via the website. And the question, Tim Baker, is it possible to invest in real estate and start building a portfolio while pursuing public service loan forgiveness? What are your thoughts?
Yes, it is possible to invest in real estate while pursuing a PSLF strategy. However, probably something that I would not advise. In PSLF, what we typically say is that one of the main, once we inventory the loans and select that strategy, the big point from there, or the big driver from there, is to optimize the strategy. So typically optimizing the strategy is where you're doing everything humanly possible, Tim, to lower your adjusted gross income. And the reason that you want to do that is because the adjusted gross income is the number that is used to calculate your student loan payment in the income-driven plan that you're in, that will get you from year 0 to year 10 for the PSLF strategy. So that is typically pay, repay, those types of plans. So what we really want to focus on here in this strategy and the ways to optimize the strategy is to really pound the pre-tax buckets as best we can. So every dollar that you can get into a traditional 401k, a traditional 403b, a traditional TSP, and an HSA. Typically, you would also say a traditional IRA, but for most pharmacists outside of like residents and fellows, that's going to be a deduction is going to be off the table because they're going to make too much money. So the traditional 401k, 403b, TSP, and HSA are going to be the main drivers for you to get your AGI down. That is ultimately going to lower your payment and maximize your forgiveness. So what am I talking about here? So if we look at this in kind of, like a scenario where you have a pharmacist that's making $120,000 and say they work for the VA and they max out their TSP or close to it, and they put the 20,500, we'll just say 20,000. So now they're not making, in the eyes of the IRS, they're not making 120,000, they're making 100,000. So what that does is when the payment plan is recalculated, now they're paying a lot less per month on that particular income-driven plan. So now it has an added benefit that you're also basically growing that pot of money that you wouldn't have otherwise done if you were going to refinance or pay in a higher income-driven plan. So, what we typically calculate on is like if you use the averages of like $175,000 in debt, $120,000 of income, typically over 10 years, they're going to pay $800, $900 a month in an income-driven plan. But if you can get that 120 down to 100, then maybe that's $600 a month. So that's so the per month, but then also the money that grows now in those buckets has a double effect. So to me, I would probably start seeding the traditional buckets and put the real estate, becoming a real estate mogul on the back burner, because it really has a doubling effect of what you're paying per month on the student loans. And then those buckets of money, the traditional 401k, 403b, TSP, HSA, growing over those 10 years of time, with the market kind of doing its thing. So is it possible? Absolutely. Is it advisable? Probably not. Because I just think that your dollars will go a lot further in a more traditional investment, because if you put $20,000 into an investment property that is doing zero for your PSLF strategy. And I think that is going to be the major needle mover with regard to your ability to build wealth in that 10-year time frame.
Yeah, really well said, Tim. I think everyone is aware. We've talked about it on the show in different episodes. I know David and Nate have certainly talked about it on the YFP Real Estate Investing podcast. There are tax advantages to real estate investing, but here it's not, and they are not connected to PSLF, right? And so
Right.
I think the optimization of, can you lower that monthly payment, as you mentioned, through the strategies you outlined? Plus, can we start to accrue some savings? And that really becomes, that focus of optimization around PSLF. I guess the thought I'd have is, if somebody's crushing it and they're able to max out those accounts and they're still able to move forward cash flow wise with other goals, maybe that's, the exception. But I think for many folks, that might be a stretch as they're trying to really focus on those traditional accounts as well as the HSA, as you mentioned. Tim, I would point folks, episode 248, Robert Lopez, YFP planning lead certified financial planner. He and I talked through 3 success stories with PSLF. We shared 3 stories of pharmacists who collectively had more than $700,000 forgiven tax-free. We also talked through some PSLF updates on that show. We'll link to that in the show notes. But through those 3 stories, I think it really helps to come to life what you're talking about here, which is that optimization strategy. And all 3 of those really leaned into that strategy, which not only led to that amount that was forgiven tax-free, but also allowed them to accelerate their savings goals. So again, this is a great question. We received this via the website. And for folks that are listening, if you have a question, you can send us an email, info@yourfinancialpharmacist.com. You can also record your question by visiting yourfinancialpharmacist.com/ask-YFP. And as we wrap up this week's episode, an important reminder that the content in this show is provided for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment or any other advice. For more information on this, you can visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/disclaimer. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your week.